it one of those non-charging ones?
It's on low battery. Where's that long case that they normally keep it in? Yeah. We can just put this on the mic.
Oh, is that the new system? But then this one can't be too loud. Continued. Reading the letters, Prabhupada became very happy. He then put the letters along with the flowers before the picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then looking at Nandarani, he asked, "Have you become happy since you have been chanting Hare Krishna?" Nandarani is Dayananda Prabhu's wife. "Oh yes," Nandarani replied, "my life is wonderful." Looking at the others, Prabhupada asked, "And what about you? Do you feel more satisfied since you have been chanting Hare Krishna?" They all answered yes. "Then I have only one request," Prabhupada continued. "Whatever happiness you have felt, you simply tell someone else about that. That is all you have to do. You don't need to teach anything. You don't need to teach the philosophy. You just explain to people that because you chant Hare Krishna, you have become happy. And if they chant, they will become happy. Then I will be satisfied, and my spiritual master will be satisfied." As Srila Prabhupada entered the storefront one evening, he was surprised to find Umapati there to greet him. Umapati had left Krishna consciousness almost a year ago, and Prabhupada had not seen him since. Spontaneously, Prabhupada went forward and embraced Umapati. A few months before, Umapati had written indicating that he was thinking of returning, so his arrival was not a complete surprise to Srila Prabhupada. As Prabhupada took his seat, he asked Umapati about the devotees in New York. Briefly, Prabhupada reminisced how he had begun his movement in New York and how boys like Umapati had helped him. Later that evening, back at the apartment, Prabhupada expressed sadness that some of his disciples had left Krishna consciousness. He told Umapati that when the wife of one of the sannyasi disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had forcibly dragged her husband away, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had shed tears over his inability to save the disciple. Disciple due to Maya's in anticipation of the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we're continuing to engage in our festival discussions. Very nice. Ram Roy has been reading now for many days. And we should all be leading up to this auspicious event. Just like the demigods, they're praying for the Lord, for his advent, and everyone knows how that came about. So there's one specific area in the Krishna book, prayers by the demigods. They want to get that. This is chapter 2, prayers by the demigods for Lord Krishna in the womb. King Kamsa not only occupied the kingdoms of the Yadu, Bhoja, and Undaka dynasties, and the kingdom of Surasen, but he also made alliances with all other demoniac kings, as follows: the demon Palamba, the demon Baka, the demon Chanura, demon Trinavarta, demon Agasur, demon Mustaka, demon Arista, demon Dvidvida, demon Putana, demon Keshi, demon Denuka. At that time, Jarasandha was the king of the Magadha province, known at present as Bihar state. Thus, by his diplomatic policy, Kamsa consolidated the most powerful kingdom of his time under the protection of Jarasandha. He made further alliances with such kings as Banasura, Bhaumasura, until he was the strongest. Then he began to behave most inimically toward the Yadu dynasty, into which Krishna was to take his birth. Being harassed by Kamsa, the kings of the Yadu, Bhoja, and Andaka dynasties took shelter in different states, such as the state of the Kurus, the state of the Panchalas, and the states known as Kekaya, Salva, Vidarbha, Nishad, Videha, and Koshala. Kamsa broke the solidarity of the Yadu kingdom, as well as the Bhoja and Andaka. He made his position the most solid within the vast tract of land known at that time as Bharatvarsha. When Kamsa was killing the 6 babies of Devaki and Vasudeva one after another, many friends and relatives of Kamsa approached him and requested him to discontinue these heinous activities, but all of them became worshippers of Kamsa. When Devaki became pregnant for the 7th time, a plenary expansion of Krishna known as Ananta appeared within her womb. Devaki was overwhelmed with both jubilation and lamentation. She was joyful, for she could understand that Lord Vishnu had taken shelter within her womb. But at the same time, she was sorry that as soon as her child would come out, Kamsa would kill him. At that time, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, being compassionate upon the Yadus, who were fearful due to the atrocities committed by Kamsa, ordered the appearance of Yogamaya, his internal potency. Krishna, the Lord of the universe, but he is especially the Lord of the Yadu dynasty. And Yogamaya is the principal potency of the personality of Godhead. In the Vedas, it is stated that the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has multi-potencies. Parasya Shaktir Vivadhaya Vishuyate. Shri C. Madhya 1365. All the different potencies are acting externally and internally, and Yogamaya is the chief of all potencies. The Lord ordered the appearance of Yogamaya in the land of Brajamumi in Vrindavan, which is always decorated and full with beautiful cows. In Vrindavan, Rohini, one of the wives of Vasudeva, was residing in the house of King Nanda and Queen Yashoda. Not only Rohini, but many others in the Yadu dynasty, Sri Shwara Govindadev Ki Jai, were scattered all over the country due to their fear of the atrocities of Kamsa. Some of them were even living in the caves of the mountains. The Lord thus informed Yogamaya, under the imprisonment of Kamsa are Devaki and Vasudeva, and at the present moment my plenary expansion Shesha is within the womb of Devaki. You can arrange the transfer of Shesha from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. After this arrangement, I am personally going to appear in the womb of Devaki with my full potencies. Then I shall appear as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, and you shall appear as the daughter of Nanda and Yashoda in Vrindavan. Since you will appear as my contemporary sister, and since you will quickly satisfy the desires for sense gratification, people within the world will worship you with all kinds of valuable presentations, incense, candles, flowers, and offerings of sacrifice. People who are after materialist perfections will worship you under the different forms of your expansions, which will be named Durga, Bhadrakali, Vijaya, Vaishnavi, Kumuda, Chandika, Krishna, Madhavi, Kanyaka, Maya, Narayani, Ishani, Sharada, and Ambika. Krishna and Yogamaya appear as brother and sister, the Supreme Powerful and the Supreme Power. Although there is no clear distinction between the powerful and the power, power is always subordinate to the powerful. Those who are materialistic are worshippers of the power, but those who are transcendentalists are worshippers of the powerful. Krishna is the Supreme Powerful, and Durga is the Supreme Power within the material world. Actually, people in the Vedic culture worship both the powerful and the power. There are many hundreds and thousands of temples of Vishnu and Devi, and sometimes they are worshipped simultaneously. The worshipper of the power, Durga, or the external energy of Krishna, may achieve all kinds of material success very easily, but anyone who wants to be elevated transcendentally must engage in worshiping the powerful in Krishna consciousness. So this is a very nice preamble, and it continues on. And I was listening to this. If anyone hasn't heard, and I was mentioning this, there are transcripts, there are tape recordings of Srila Prabhupada when he was translating and transcribing Krishna book, 1969, 1970. So this pastime of Srila Prabhupada transcribing these all took place, for the most part, in the Henry Street Temple. And during the course of his travels, he would, in other places as well, but a significant amount of time was spent at that desk in that room, translating and transcribing the Krishna book. And if you hear Srila Prabhupada translating, one can appreciate how Prabhupada is reading from the Sanskrit text, and he's immediately translating. And he often commented that I am not speaking this. And you can actually hear that when he's this continuous, uninterrupted train of thought in which he's presenting what we're reading here is flowing spontaneously. He doesn't have to sit like we do sometimes, interspersed with and all these different things. It's just, Prabhupada is just directly giving this transcendental commentary. There's no other word for it. You know, there's not simply someone just reciting something like we are reading here. He is directly in contact with this sublime energy that the pure devotee has unlimited access to. And so we're just very, very fortunate to have this. Like he was saying, are you happy? So when we read these purports, anyone who can meditate and see how Krishna has presented this through the pure devotee, he must be happy to have this opportunity to be in the audience, regardless of the difference in time. Because just like reading now, he reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still and sound. A Vaishnav dies to live, and living spreads the holy name around. So this is a unique opportunity. You know, so we're celebrating Janmashtami. 50, 60 years ago, no one knew what Janmashtami was in the Western world. They had no idea. And now it's being celebrated in thousands of temples in almost every country in the world. In some countries in a completely clandestine fashion, in places like China and Iran and Iraq and all these other places, and Dubai. So we see that how by just one representative, pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, everything has happened. So this should give one confidence. And it should instill in him a level of faith which gives him the proper appreciation and understanding by which he can carry out his duties. And this is, philosophically, one can have so many contemplations and meditations, like we're meditating now on the birth of Lord Krishna, right? But this has to culminate in action. It cannot simply be that one retires to some cave in the Himalayas, you know, which we know that from yam, niyam, asana, dharana, dhyan, that one can go up to samadhi. And so sometimes someone is thinking, yes, I want to reach this platform. But artificially, it cannot be achieved. And one who attempts to do these things simply through mental gymnastics, because one cannot, there's something called Siddha Pranali, that many groups, they offer this. They say you can get this mantra by which you will reveal your eternal identity with Krishna. So this Siddha Pranali mantra, people use it like some attractive, like you're trying to sell somebody something, and you want them to come into your group. They say, yes, if you come, then you'll very quickly, we'll give you this mantra, and you can chant, and very quickly you'll become, you'll understand, you'll enter into Krishna's association as one of his whatever. I've never heard anybody say that you'll become a blade of grass or you'll become a tree. They're all looking to become some personal associate, as if this is our eternal right, as if we have some. But this is not, this type of mood and mentality is not conducive for developing the proper appreciation. Because ultimately one has to deserve. Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. So if one is thinking, let me just eliminate this, let me forfeit, or let me try to go beyond this tadvidi pranipatin, why do I have to become submissive? Why do I have to go through this routine? I'm already advanced. I already understand. I've read these books. I don't need a spiritual master. So this was the danger always, that one is thinking that he becomes more intelligent than the spiritual master, more intelligent than all of the acharyas and the mahajans, and that he can jump ahead and try to approach Krishna directly. So what can we do in order to prevent this from happening? So we see that at least in our society, Srila Prabhupada was very, very careful how to engage the devotees in rendering service in a very cautious manner. He said one should not become too close to the deity or the spiritual master. He said familiarity breeds contempt. And yet we see that Prabhupada was giving a very nice opportunity for all these new devotees to have intimate association. And at the same time, he saw that this intimate association wasn't always the best thing, and so he carefully applied it, just like a physician knows when to give a certain dosage of medicine and a certain strength at a certain time, specifically according to time and circumstances. And so those persons who he gave this opportunity, they benefited greatly, but at the same time, we saw that this familiarity led them to some, how can you say, disappointment, in the absence of Srila Prabhupada's direct association. So they couldn't appreciate the difference between the Vani and the Vapu and how both are the same, and that in the absence of Srila Prabhupada's presence, so when the situation became clear with this particular devotee, a very nice disciple of Srila Prabhupada Umapati, he was part of what in the Lilamrita you'll see the Mott Street gang. This is Umapati, Kirtanananda, and Hayagriva. So they came together. When Prabhupada left for San Francisco, then that Umapati left. His doubts took him away. Due to his inability, for whatever reason, he couldn't take shelter. Although at that time, Prabhupada had given back to Godhead, he'd given so many things, but there was an absence of Prabhupada's writings at that time. And so they had little to go back to. Like now we have Prabhupada's books. But in 1967, there was nothing, basically speaking. Thank you, Prabhu. And so they had the difficulty of trying to keep their Krishna conscious. And what was the main point of keeping everything strong was through the association of each other. All right? And so sometimes there is a situation like that, where you can see how what is important ultimately is the association of devotees. As at that time, when there was a lack of available literature, that they had each other, and they had the process, and they had the chanting. But if one was not strong, then he would use Prabhupada's absence to justify that I can't stay. And so in 1977, when Prabhupada entered into his, back into Samadhi, we see the same situation occurred, where many devotees, without Prabhupada's direct association, they could not continue on in Krishna consciousness. And at that time, there was full access to Srila Prabhupada's books, his lectures, his tapes, so many things. And it's understandable that in the absence, when the spiritual master departs, there are some difficulties. And now again, we have some practical experience in this regard. But at that time, when Srila Prabhupada was the personification, he had told Guru Kripa one time, he said, I am ISKCON. And so that's, to that extent, Prabhupada was such a unique personality that somehow or other, still, people could not realize that. And this was hopefully will be remedied by the generations to follow who have now never seen Srila Prabhupada, never met Srila Prabhupada, but have only heard him or read his purports, and are developing faith that doesn't require this personal aspect. They have the personal aspect. The sound vibration is not different. He reasons ill who tells. It's not different. So this realization is even a greater asset in one's spiritual life. Because he's developed, and when he's developed this faith in the spiritual master, in Srila Prabhupada, and in his Srila Prabhupada's disciples, he knows that this is real. He doesn't have to speculate. He doesn't have to think, no, what happens when my spiritual master leaves? Or he's not present. Because for many now, that's the case. And if they've developed this faith, then nothing should shake it, because they've already passed the test of having come in contact with a bona fide representative of the parampara, and at the same time now have feeling the pangs of separation. So this separation is a very tangible impetus at times to carry on the work of the spiritual master. If one feels that my spiritual master has given me something, then one should be very happy, as Prabhupada implied, to do something in return, to give back. This is gratitude. That what I've received, now let me tell others how and why I am happy. That we've met someone who is a unique representative. All these devotees who are coming are all unique. None of them are, how can you say, just some rubber stamp. You know, this is, and the realizations that the devotees are presenting to us in the form of their contemplations, published in many places, in many ways, have expanded this movement and made it easier and more accessible to some in different walks and different stages of life. And so this is another testimony to how this movement will continue in the future, even in the absence of those original disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And so it's not a burden, but it's a great opportunity to expand. Prabhupada gave a very strong, in the beginning, he said, everyone should write their realizations. And he made it very simple. He said, even 2 sentences a day. But something should be there. Whether it's a note that you put in, not in the margin of any Prabhupada's books, he didn't like that. Don't write in Prabhupada's books. Keep a notebook. Because these books are worshipable, so they have to be respected as such. right? But it happens at some time. So one should have his notebook and keep his notes, and he should contemplate in that regard that what has he realized, not simply by blind following. That how I can appreciate what I've heard from my spiritual master, what I've heard from all of these teachers. Because in this way, when his presentation, whatever he's speaking, and when he tells a person why he's happy, he's convinced. Vaisheshika Prabhu was mentioning in his Sankirtan presentation that a person has to see it in you. You're selling something. He has to see how you have benefited. If he can't see how you've benefited, then why should he buy a book? And he can see by your demeanor, by your confidence, by your presentation. You know, it shouldn't be something hesitant. And so therefore, Prabhupada had encouraged everyone to read his book so that we understand what we're giving to someone is of the highest order, the most valuable gem. And they'll appreciate that this is something special. Not that this is just another mundane literature. You know, and if it's given, and Prabhupada said it shouldn't be given cheaply, there must be some exchange. And that exchange can take many forms. It can take the form of appreciation. But for the most part, if a person has purchased something, he will give it more value that I have purchased this. And so this was important, and all book distributors know this. They don't simply go out to distribute the books sentimentally. It has to be done with focus and purpose. And then they benefit, and everyone who they meet benefits. It's not just, I need to distribute as many books as possible and collect as much Lakshmi as possible. This is not the key. The key is to please the spiritual master by this Sankirtan Jagya. Jagya means that there is strict adherence to the performance of the activity. Because like today, later on in the Mahajagya, that's not that you just chant any mantra, or that there's no protocol and order for the Jagya. Everything has to be done exactly as it's written. Otherwise, what is the purpose and what is the benefit? And so in the same way, we learn how to conduct this Sankirtan Jagya internally by chanting our rounds, associating with the devotees, and following these principles. Prabhupada said devotion, he said Krishna consciousness means regulation. Another one of these Prabhupada says. And when he said this, it wasn't, the context to my small mind was it wasn't clear immediately. That disciple means regulation. But we can understand that without regulation, there's no purpose, there's no structure. And everything becomes sentimental. Why am I getting up? Why am I chanting? So in the beginning, Vaidhi Bhakti, this is the stage where without regulation, one cannot make advancement. And so disciple means regulated. And so therefore Prabhupada gave us the regulative principles. Could have named them something else. Why did he name the regulative principles? And so everything Prabhupada did and said has so much meaning, but sometimes we don't understand till years later when we hear Prabhupada say it. A disciple means regulated. And so therefore everything we do has to be regulated, that we rise at the correct time. We chant our japa at the correct time. We understand that there's a time to chant japa. We understand that there's a time to rise. There's a time for everything, technically speaking. There's a time to eat. There's a time to sleep. So everything is there, and when we're aware of it and it guides us, then we see that our life becomes very much simplified. Because it's no longer just what I feel like or when I feel like it. And regulation is not meant to be mechanical or imposed. It becomes second nature. Right? It becomes a habit. Prabhupada said, habit means second nature. So when we develop these transcendental habits of rising early and chanting our rounds and attending the programs, then we see that everything else goes very simply. And Prabhupada said, if you chant 16 rounds, management will be at your fingertips. And it doesn't just mean management for those who are in the position of managers. Everyone is managing his sadhana. So that management will be at your fingertips as well. Prabhupada used the term, and the first time I heard it, I didn't understand. He said, when you chant 16 rounds, management will be at your finger points. So he didn't use the term fingertips, he used the term finger points. So that was interesting how there was colloquial use. Prabhupada used many terms like that. Very endearing to us, how Prabhupada presented these things. It made us so much more appreciate how he brought this way of tradition and culture, mixed it with the transcendental presentation of the Vedas, and gave it to us in such a palatable way that it won over everyone's hearts. And so all these things added together, just like we're giving the hearing about the prayers by the demigods. So our prayers on a regular basis should be directed in such a way that we're cultivating this or continuing to cultivate our relationship with our spiritual masters. In the whole line. It's not just, because the spiritual masters and our prayers is always plural. It's never singular. And so in this way, we appreciate that that this parampara has an eternal feature. It is not that, as some would like to say, that it stopped with this person. No, it did not. Or that we have to wait for the advent of another such self-realized, self-manifest. No, there's no. These things have already been considered in the past. When the sages gathered at Naimisharanya, they elected a person to sit. Of course, Balaram decided differently, but that's transcendental. But here was so many pure devotees, and yet they proposed that one should be elected to oversee the discussion. And so this is continuing. This is non-different. So this gathering of sages now has, in the context of the material world, we have this same gathering happening in thousands of temples all over the world. So all these sages are non-different. They're all performing the same activity, dealing with the questions that are beneficial for humanity. And then taking those combined responses and presenting them on the streets of all the great cities. And so this is something unique, but it all begins, at least in this manifestation, Advent, and in this age, so that we feel directly a part of this pastime. Doesn't have to be contrived. This is simply not even a question of time and space. You know, we see how Srila Prabhupada was specifically in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, that the description is there of the Senapati Bhakt. Now, Lord Chaitanya very clearly says that this personality will appear. And so in so many ways, one doesn't have to look very far for confirmation of who that personality was. But it's a secret, because it's a secret only confirmed when you see everything, when you see the big picture. You can't just see Prabhupada's personality or advent in that limited vision. You have to see what this person did. Because so many people are trying to imitate Prabhupada, you know, by erecting big, gorgeous temples. Because they can't really do anything else. They can't start a global movement. They can't even leave the precincts of one district in Mathura. And they try, they have some sangha, some marg, some this, some that, but it is not effective. It has no potency. And when you meet these followers, you can see it's very clear they're not the same as when you meet the devotees or see the devotees on the streets chanting, or on the streets distributing books, or in the temple worshiping the deities. These things are totally unique to ISKCON. Totally unique. It's just like if someone tries to present something to you and you're have experience in understanding what a specific skill set is. And if someone comes and tries to show you something artificial or insufficient, someone who's learned or knowledgeable, he will look at it and say, this is not up to the standard. You can see it immediately, that this is not correct, that you don't know what you're talking about, to put it in plain language. They don't know what they're talking about. But this is not the case with Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. But we have to take care to guard it very carefully. And in these prayers by the demigods, we're simply praying in the same way that Krishna, he's come already. He's already done what he has to do. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. He's already done what he has to do. And now it is up to us. He's given us the opportunity, you know, to represent him. And in this way, we have to also be qualified to do that. We can't just be show bottle devotees. You know, we have to make sure that, you know, internally, that we have the fortitude. Like now, devotees go to the doctors, they do their blood tests, and the doctor tells them, you're completely deficient of this particular vitamin. You know, so externally, maybe you don't even know. But then you go to the physician and he checks your blood, and all of a sudden he tells you, no, you're missing this. So how do we understand what are my deficiencies in spiritual life? My japa vitamin, my 4 regulative principle vitamin, my sadhana bhakti vitamin. What are my supplements? So this is the regulation. This is how we daily satisfy our internal need to have these specific ingredients required to carry out our duties. Without which, then ultimately one will become sick. That deficiency will lead him to leave, like Umapati Prabhu. I don't mean to use Umapati, but he's present here in Prabhupada's words. And so we don't want to. The worst thing is that someone comes to Krishna consciousness and then somehow or other, because of challenges that you cannot, for whatever reason, find a solution to. Even though all the solutions, just like if we take the temple as complete, just like Krishna is complete, Krishna's temple is also complete. Everything is there. Just like the hospital, the doctors are there, the nurses are there, the equipment is there, the medicine is there, everything is there. But you have to know what and who to take instruction from. You can't just wander around the hospital grounds and pop into the x-ray room and then give yourself some dosage of x-rays. You have to be careful. You have to know what to do and who to ask. And so everyone should have a mentor. If he doesn't have a mentor, he has a close friend who performs the same function. He has some spiritual refuge. Just like when it's stormy or rainy outside, one comes, he takes shelter. So we have that shelter. We have everything. So there is no reason, there is no excuse to not have everything one needs. But yet still, there's sometimes doubt. And this doubt in the Bhagavad Gita is compared to a demon that one has to slay. And ultimately, once he has sufficient knowledge, not superficial knowledge, not simply book knowledge, not this speculative knowledge based on one's atmavan manyate jagat, this internal seeing things through the lens of one's own mental capacity, which is very small. Then he will have whatever he needs at his fingertips. But he has to know where to get that from. Cannot just be, like I said, wandering aimlessly in the halls of the temple. He has to be engaged. He has to have service. He should not be thinking that I am on some independent study program. Sometimes we see that devotees, they come to the temple and they think, let me do my independent study. I don't need to listen to the temple authorities. I know why I'm here. I just need a place to eat and sleep and then leave me alone. So this doesn't work. There has to be guidance. And these devotional activities are not simply make busy work. That, this person just wants me to be engaged for the sake. No, it is not like that. Whatever it may appear to you, the fact that the service is being, applied, like the medicine is being applied, it has the effect. So even if one is thinking, why should I do this? If he simply does it, he fulfills the act of performing the sacrifice, of engaging in the fire of devotion. And he's doing his swaha. It looks like he's washing pots, or it looks like he's sweeping the floor. He may look like any mundane activity. But simply by engaging in that way, he's performing the highest duty, the highest engagement that one can possibly perform. And if he doesn't appreciate it immediately, by doing that engagement, he will gradually get the realization how this is not material and that it is completely spiritual. And he shouldn't be thinking that I have to get something in return. That nullifies the benefit. Right? Pure devotion means ahoitikia pratiyata. There can't be any motive. It can't be interrupted. So this is the definition of devotional service. And it's being given to us. I mean, we see so many analogies. You know, how Prabhupada perfectly applied in his dealings with these devotees, without telling them anything that now, benefit of hindsight, when we hear his interactions, we see that he's speaking from the nectar of devotion. Or we see he's speaking from the nectar of instruction, but these books did not exist. But he's telling these, he's giving them, he's personally the personification of the nectar of devotion and the nectar of instruction, and the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. That's why he's the personified person Bhagavat. And so these early disciples were so fortunate to get this direct from the mouths of the pure devotee, everything. But now we read and we say, oh yes, Prabhupada's actually saying this verse. Atak pumbir dvija sheshta varnashrama vibhagasaha sunustatasya dhammasya sangsiddhir haritoshanam. That whatever your position is in society, whatever you think you are, whether you think you're a Brahmin or a Kshatriya, a Vaishya or a Sudra, atak pumbir dvija sheshta, but specifically these Brahmins, because we see that this is the corruption that took place at a certain point in time. And right there in the beginning, in the questions and the answers to these sages, they're being told at the very onset that no, this designation is totally artificial. That the highest duty is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And without that, then all your activities are shrama eva hi kevalam, a useless waste of time. So we have to be very careful. If we have a doubt is a sign of intelligence. But the conclusion, the other part of that is that one has to seek an answer. You cannot just let this doubt fester until it becomes so great that it provides an excuse for him to leave the association of devotees. That doubt must be eliminated. It must be cut just in the beginning. We saw so many times people were doubting. Now Prabhupada can be compared to be the original conspiracy theorist. He was the first person we ever heard say that they never went to the moon. Very first person, an easy journey to other planets. Said they could not go. Right? And this was before they even contemplated going. And then when they supposedly went, Prabhupada said it's not possible. They didn't go to the moon. And now there was a poll taken recently that 65% of the adult population in the world doesn't believe that we went to the moon. That it was all just some propaganda. So this is another, how can you say, appreciation of the logic behind Prabhupada's conclusions. You know, strictly based on the Vedic scriptures. Strictly based on the Vedic scriptures. And so that's why one should be very attentive in hearing Srila Prabhupada's instructions. So if you're listening to Prabhupada carefully in his lectures and allowing these words to penetrate into your heart, then you will have all the answers you'll ever need. But if you are not reading Prabhupada's books daily, and you're not listening to Srila Prabhupada regularly, then at a certain point, yes, you may question some things. And how it will be presented to you. Maya will just pop it into your mind and say, what about this? What about that? You know, so this, and it will happen at a very inopportune time when you're doing something and then all of a sudden it becomes very easy for you to, like traveling Sankirtan, not to hit on traveling Sankirtan. But traveling Sankirtan was one of those engagements where very easily these doubts appear. And one is outside, he's got a pocket full of money, he's just collected all this. And the next thing you know, he's heading home to see his girlfriend. So it's this has happened more times than we want to think. One nice devotee who joined, out of the blue one time, I saw this personality, immediately struck me as familiar. A very nice devotee. But he didn't look, obviously, there's the difference of 40 years. And he was out on traveling Sankirtan, and he had same thing. He was out, and Maya was pressuring him and pressuring him and pressuring him, and he wasn't taking shelter of the other devotees who might not have been, maybe he didn't have respect for them or for their advancement. Sankirtan leader has to be a strong personality. Can't be someone weak, two neophytes together, traveling around. That's a recipe for disaster. Has to be some strong person in that party. Someone who has command of the philosophy. Not just a desire to execute the order, but also an understanding of why this activity is being performed. And so, he took that Lakshmi that he was collecting that day and he went home. 40 years later, he showed up and said, I feel really bad and I want to make it up. And he started giving donations to compensate for everything that he took when he was on traveling Sankirtan. So Krishna sees everything, and of course you do have to, you want to make up for such mistakes like that. You know, nothing Krishna, Nehabhikramana Sasti, Krishna is not holding it against you. At the same time, if you want a clear heart, if you want to regain your transcendental position, then you have to know what to do, you know, how to correct that situation. You have to engage again in some meaningful way, not just lip service, that I'm sorry. Yes, you can say that. That's the beginning. But you have to show by actions how you're sorry. So that was done. So we bless such sincere souls who are on the path of rectification, that they may be successful in this life, in all respects. So we should have compassion. If we see our God brothers or God sisters having difficulties, we shouldn't hesitate. Don't think, well, I don't want to approach him. He might not like it. That's not your problem. Your duty is to give that person an understanding from your perspective that, hey, Prabhu, I noticed you haven't been coming to the morning program. You know, can I give you a little nudge, a little wake-up call? Is there anything I can help with? Don't just ignore it because you think he'll snap at you. Right? We're in here, in the temple, for a particular reason. And it's very important to understand these points. Right? Don't ignore it. What is that? Friends don't let friends be in Maya. right? They have that bumper sticker, friends don't let friends eat meat, or so many things they put on there. So friends don't let friends be in Maya. Don't ignore it. Be compassionate. Be tactful in your dealings, not duplicitous, not diplomatic, not hypocritical, but tactful and gentle. This is not rocket science here. But don't ignore the situation. Otherwise you may feel, if I had just said something, maybe that Prabhu would still be here. If I had just brought it to the attention of his mentor that Prabhu is having a problem, maybe you can give him some guidance, some counseling. You know? Very important concepts. You know? The demigods are praying for the appearance of Lord Krishna. We're also praying for the appearance of Lord Krishna in the heart of every living entity. And so this is our daily prayer. It's not just a one-time thing that the demigods are doing. We're praying daily that how I can become an instrument, how I'm praying for that Krishna appears in the heart of every living entity through my actions, in the kitchen by preparing nice prasadam, on the altar by decorating the deity so nice so that everyone feels uplifted, and outside by distributing books and giving nice instructions. So all these things are the same. They're not different, just different varieties in the same bouquet of devotional service. So this is not a purport. There wasn't anything to question. Does anyone want to question why the demigods offered prayers to Lord Krishna in the womb of Devaki? It's self-evident. And for us, it's a reminder of why we do what we do every day, and why we should be reading, and why we should be praying. You know, it's not this, our japa is our rectification to clean our heart. It's not a substitute for praying to the Supreme Lord, to the Spiritual Master, to all of our acharyas. Right? If it was that was so, then we wouldn't have these beautiful, the Gitavali. We wouldn't have such compositions, you know, from our great acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Narottam Das. We wouldn't have. These are their prayers. These are their internal expressions given for our benefit. And so when we read them, how can one not be moved? And not that we're expected to come up to that standard and write like that, but one should pray with a pure heart, without motive. It's just a simple thing. That from this day forward, I am yours. Right? That's such a simple offering to the Lord. That from this day forward, I am yours. You know, I am your servant. You give me whatever direction you want me to do. I'm fully surrendered. So like this, the demigods were feeling like this. We're understanding why they're doing that activity. And we should simply be praying to Krishna, always to appear within our heart. And, you know, it's happening. One is feeling it as the more time he spends in this movement, the more he understands how Krishna has, through Srila Prabhupada, through the acharyas, has manifested in a very tangible way. And it's no longer just a sentiment. It's no longer just a concept or a theory. Right? And he's able to utilize this, you know, in the execution of his duties. Sometimes these duties are not very pleasant. But one is just like, why do people do things in the material world? Because there's some remuneration. There's some exchange of money. So why do you see devotees who will do certain things that are so difficult? It's because they're getting reciprocation. Now, and it takes different forms. They're enlivened, they're gladdened, they're enthused to do these services. And Krishna, whatever they do, they're happy doing it. Whatever they do, they're happy doing it. And that is the actual result. That you're becoming happy by chanting. And Prabhupada's asking this very simple question. Chant these names of God, your life will be sublime. Chant and be happy. It doesn't say chant and you'll enter into the Rasa Leela. It says chant and be happy. Chant these names of God and your life will be sublime. And so now everyone has this. Everyone here has this. You have that taste. But now you have to focus. You see, now you have to demonstrate it. Now you have to engage every day. And that taste will come more and more, to engage more and more. Not some artificial, imposed, false happiness that is fleeting and will quickly go away. So, I'm sorry I took the class a little long, but it was a very nice reading, and very happy that we're able to present this to the public. I remember the first Janmashtami we had here after we came to the temple. That was 2019. So everything is completely different from what it was then. The temple was not in very good condition. There was only a handful of devotees. And by Krishna's arrangement, by the mercy of our Guru Parampara, that Krishna has, from our perspective, fully returned to his received worship from his loving devotees. So he has advented. So for us, this is just confirmation that Krishna has again advented after a long hibernation. And so we can continue more and more in this way, and Krishna will manifest more and more. And that this is something we should all look forward to, and we can see it. If you look around, it is going on. So we want to thank all the devotees who have come to fulfill this long-awaited, New York City, how can you call it? Renaissance. I think that's what we called it initially in 2019, a renaissance. When we went to Tompkins Square Park and all the devotees were there. Who was there for that 2019 renaissance? There was a few, yes, there was a few. You are the veterans. You are the veterans. It was a memorialized, very special time. So thank you all again. Let's get about our activities. Did you have any questions back there, Mr. Narada? No. Oh, wait, okay, not the bar has to come.
It's related to
Couldn't even.
Janmashtami. Where should we move this pew?
I would just put it out in the alleyway for now. If the temple commander says, I mean, is there room in the cafe, Matanga, now? For this? It used to be in the cafe. You can stop that.